Welcome again to Pop Culture Petri Dish. It's the podcast where we talk about science fiction and science fact and how they interplay culturally and in our imaginations. I'm one of your co-hosts. My name is Abe Epperson.
And I am Cristian Ramirez, your other co-host.
Yes, so here we are. What are we talking about today?
Today we are going to talk about monsters, specifically ones in sci-fi.
So, and we wanted to we talked about this, we wanted to kind of do a biology experiment. Like, look at what is the biology of these monsters, some of our favorite ones.
Yeah, some appear to be part reptile, some are maybe insects.
And what does that mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. What do you want to talk about first?
I think, I just thought of this now, I think we should probably start with the original sci-fi monster, Frankenstein. That's one that we hadn't talked about before, but that's where it started. That's where our concepts of, and of course, Dr. Frankenstein is the one that is the monster, and humanity is the monster in that story. But but his monster is really the first kind of sci-fi concept that we get in literature. Obviously there's other stuff where, if you want to argue that Egyptians and stuff like that thought of things having animal heads and human bodies and stuff like that, that could be sci-fi, whatever. But in our current culture, we recognize Mary Shelley as being the one that invented. I think it's funny because we didn't really understand a lot when she wrote this book. We didn't understand a lot about the way that the role that electricity plays in our brains and in our nervous system and everything. We understood that if you shocked people, it could make muscles trigger and stuff like that. But we didn't understand that literally our brain runs on electrical signals at that time. So it's just amazing, and kind of like that is what this podcast is about. That's the interplay between science fiction, blazing new trails and exploring new ideas, and then science going, oh, okay, that is a good idea. Let's catch up with that. Let's see how much validity that kind of has. And I think it's really funny that she would come upon a concept of just humans being basically machines that run off of electricity. Like way back when she actually conceived of it. It's really cool. And Frankenstein, I'm going to call it Frankenstein instead of Frankenstein's monster, because everybody knows what I'm talking about when I say Frankenstein.
I call him by his real name, which is I Frankenstein.
So Aaron Eckhart
yeah. Is his first name. Frankenstein is his last name.
So it's just I, though. The I is not an initial for anything.
No. It's just I, that's his first name. But isn't his name Adam?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, that was the original name.
Oh, well, how fresh that take is.
But yeah, so and of course, people in the book, the villagers, react accordingly to what we know, how we know a lot of people
with pitchforks and fire.
Exactly. And they respond to scientific discovery, because that's really what it was, with rage and anger. And of course, we can see that a lot now. Yeah.
But
he's kind of a cool monster. He's a timeless monster. He's a monster that, because he's us, it's something that's going to be an image, a type of imagery that lasts forever.
Yeah. And that's how I interact with science now. When I learn something, I immediately get rageful.
Yeah, like my 23andMe results.
Yeah. I don't like this science. Okay, so that's an interesting start. I think it gets more interesting when we start to talk about less convergent evolution and more divergent evolution, meaning aliens.
Yes.
What's your favorite alien monster?
My favorite alien monster has to be the Xenomorph. Because that one is the one that scares me the most, I think.
Yeah. How does that blood work?
Yeah. The blood works. I think they must be a silicon-based life form instead of carbon-based, because I don't understand how else they would have acid blood. inside of them.
I don't know how acid
corrodes.
What type of acid it is, but it definitely is effective at burning through things.
Yeah, and metal.
Yeah, and as predators now, it's just no good. Just don't. You gotta build a shield out of its skull, because otherwise, the only thing that can protect you from xenomorph blood is a xenomorph outside. Now, questions aside about how you cut that open effectively and like hollowed out all the blood and like made it so that when he like grabs I think I'm referencing
Alien versus Predator.
He grabs the inside of that skull dome skin.
I think it must be because they have an exoskeleton, so they don't really bleed. If you poke them on their exoskeleton, you can kind of separate their body parts, and there's like sacks of organs and stuff like that.
Highly effective organism, and as you know, now to reference like Prometheus, it kind of has like a Ender Game style like trajectory, because like so it starts as just like a mist, and then it turns into face huggers. And also zombies.
Yeah.
And then it turns into xenomorph queens. So it's not even like ant rules. It's not just like there's one organism and sometimes you're a queen.
Yeah.
It's like it has to go through this life cycle.
Yeah.
Of getting from very, very small to very, very scary. And that is an interesting notion to me, but biologically completely foreign.
Right.
There's nothing like that on this planet.
Right.
The closest thing I can think of is like the funguses.
Yeah.
That, you know, like, because they like, the one especially I'm thinking of is the one that like burrows into like ants and like explodes out of ants and like makes them go crazy.
Yeah.
So part of its life cycle is like it is controlling an ant, but ultimately it's just a fungus.
Right. There are some animals, like of course botflies bury their young inside humans or other animals, other mammals. But there is a bug, an insect called the tarantula hawk, which will paralyze. And it's very similar to the xenomorph in this way. It will paralyze its victim and then lay its eggs inside of it. And eventually when the eggs hatch, they eat the tarantula. And that's how it works. And so I guess that's probably the most similar thing that I can think of to how a xenomorph.
Yeah, it's metal as fuck. I mean, that's just a nightmare of truth.
Yeah. They only attack tarantulas. They're not going after people. Don't worry about them.
Yeah, but as far as we're aware, they are sentient. I mean, they act sentient.
Yeah.
But they don't, like, there's no, like, xenomorphic culture.
Right.
Like, societally, they're just a murder species.
Right.
Like, the predators have, like, a culture where it's like, yeah, there's a rite of passage. When you're a teenager, you go and murder a bunch of people, and if you survive, you're now a full-blown predator. I don't know what their situation is. But, like, with xenomorph, it's just like, I just infect things.
Yeah, and the way that
they operate more like a automaton.
Right. The way that it's presented to us with adding in stuff like Prometheus and Alien versus Predator into the mythology, they're supposed to be the ultimate, like, killing machine. And I don't think that they function off of a hive mind because they make sounds at each other and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It seems like they have verbal communication, at least in some way.
They understand each other, and then they know, like, save the queen.
Right, exactly.
But that can still be like automaton.
Yeah.
You know, like the ants have that, right?
Right, exactly.
So they, like, there's no great, like, xenomorph artist, you know, who's like writing poetry and saying like, the little version of me that's inside me that I stab people with. What does he think? You know, like no one asks. Everyone asks why xenomorph. No one asks how xenomorph. You know.
But yeah, and I mean, I think just from like me being a fan of the Aliens franchise, because I think that might be my favorite. And we'll talk about this in a little bit. Until Annihilation, which just came out this year, Aliens is maybe my favorite sci-fi franchise because it's just the horror elements are perfect. All the Geiger artwork, the design of the actual Xenomorph is terrifying. It's all a metaphor for rape with all of that. And it hit me at a time when I was like, I think I was probably too young to watch it when I first saw it. Right. I was like 12 or 13 years old when sex was still a thing that's like weird and foreign and like, oh my God. Now aliens. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And now I have to watch Aliens. Yeah. And so I'm just glad you
mentioned Annihilation because that might be my favorite. It depends on which movie I watched last.
Right.
Annihilation and the doppelganger guy, the Shimmer and the whole thing there, because it's also equally cryptic as my other favorite, which is The Thing.
Yeah.
They're both inexplicable in their like why.
Right.
And that's what's horrifying and haunting about both of those films and concepts is that there will be aliens that we don't even understand why they are murdering us.
Right.
They may think that they're helping us out, you know. They may not think at all. So in Annihilation, you have this doppelganger, and this is spoilers for both of these movies, but you know I don't care.
Go see Annihilation if you haven't seen it.
Good.
Go see it.
Alex Garland is. I thought Ex Machina was like good, like fine to good.
Yeah.
And I think Annihilation is his tour de force.
It's amazing.
It's really smart.
Go see it now. Yeah. Pause the podcast. Go see it.
And also, just because people of small beans will know, The Thing is in like my top 5 movies.
Yeah.
I'm a big advocate of The Thing. I may even be The Thing. And what I like about both of those organisms is that they are the imitation aspect, the aspect that they infect you like a xenomorph. They infect you, but they also change your DNA.
Yeah.
While they change their DNA, and that's specific to Annihilation. With The Thing, they just become you. But it's just the idea of like things like secretly getting in, like invasion of the body snatchers. Yep. Like it's this kind of. And if you remember, Invasions of the Body Snatchers was kind of an allegory for like the Red Scare.
Yeah.
The idea is like, who of us could be communists?
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, because an idea is infectious as well as like an infection or like a disease. But you can't see it physically on their body, so they might secretly be a communist. And so the idea of a doppelganger, or the idea of The Thing being imitations, means that I think it's a reflection of, first off, I think it's a reflection of our fear of the unknown regarding like what other type of organisms could occur and like destroy us, that we aren't even just like big strong hands or teeth.
Yeah.
You know, just like something that like sleepily kills you. But biologically, this idea about like, because in both of those films, there's this idea of like this mitosis that occurs between on the cellular level, where it's like it shares your DNA now. And there's that haunting moment in the lighthouse in Annihilation where it's like she's being like raped, you know, where the doppelganger who has mimicked her for, you know, like a minute, and she tries to get away and slams Natalie Portman against the wall and puts its face against her face, and she's screaming. But then she stops and she kind of just becomes resigned. And I think that's the part of that movie where like the absorption process is now taken hold. She is now a little bit of imitation and Natalie Portman. And this imitation is mostly imitation, but also Natalie Portman.
Yeah.
So they're kind of one mind, which is kind of Thing rules, because like, you cut off a hand of the Thing and it still can run around and infect other things with it. That is the most psychologically terrifying version of a monster I can think of. And it also has its foundations in actual science.
Right.
Like with the tarantula hawk and, just the idea of, you embed yourself in something and then you win.
Exactly.
It's also viral in its, idea. It's the idea of like a virus's goal is just to infect outright whatever it can.
Yeah.
And that's its propagation.
Yeah. It's like Toxoplasmosis gondii, which is it's a bacteria that's cats have inside of them that infects humans and makes them more likely to like be doting and caring for cats. It's something that you carry with you. You have no idea that it's affecting you, but it is altering your behavior.
Oh, that's terrifying.
To its own benefit.
That is terrifying. I'm going to infect you with love.
Yeah. And in Annihilation, it does, because she knows at the end that Oscar Isaac is not him, but she embraces him.
Yeah.
She still...
Because she's also some of the shimmer came back with her as well. So they're both... There's a part of them that are the same. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's... I don't like it. It scares me a lot. It scares me a lot because just the idea of like a sci-fi concept where an organism takes you over, and you don't know that it's happening, and your mind is altered and is fine with it. Yeah, is the true sense of the word. Like that really invades every part of us. I much rather just like. All right, we're doing this, zombies. I'm wrapping some, like phone books on my arm and I'm just going to town with you on a bat. Like, that's easy. Yeah. This is, you have no control over even your own mind. Yeah. Your mind is being infected, and that's where we draw the line, or at least that's where it just becomes immediately more horrifying. Right. Yeah. But so the psychology aside, is the biology of... Do you think the Xenomorph's biology is still the best biology of an alien? Is that the best that the human race has thought of?
I think as far as... No, I think artistically to me it's the scariest and it's the best. But I think scientifically Annihilation wins. Because the shimmer it doesn't have motivation. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have a purpose that is
other than just self-reproduction.
Yep, reproduction, which is exactly what every biological entity wants to do.
Because the movie is about self-destruction.
Yes. And so it's that, just the depth of that concept, because it's okay. Annihilation does something that every good science fiction does. When it takes a small concept, the concept of something that is causing mutation, that just wants to reproduce, and then it goes, okay, what is that when we blow it up and put it out upon a bunch of other things? Mm-hmm. And that's why we get beautiful things like the flowers that are a bunch of different flowers attached to the same stem structure. Yeah. And like the deer that has the imitation of it, with flowers growing out of its antlers and stuff like that, and the people, the bushes shaped like people that have human DNA and structure.
The shark alligator,
yeah,
and of course
the terror bear,
which is the most horrifying monster I think has ever been conceived, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, as far as pure sheer horrifying impact that it had on me, it has to be, it's Xenomorph in that. And Xenomorph is because I was 12 years old, right? And I'm an adult. I'm 32 years old, and the terror bear is just, it's beyond, like, I don't know how you imagine that.
Which is crazy though, because it's not playing by any rule. Like, there's one thing that does, because it's not playing by any new rules. No. Predator can mimic speech. Yeah. But there's something even more haunting about knowing that, like, the bear legitimately, like, wants... It's not doing it for a purpose. No. It is a part of it. Mm-hmm. Like, when it kills that woman and steals her speech, screaming, "Help me," because it's in the throes of murder... it's like it means that when the other woman is like, "Wait, did you guys hear she's alive. She's downstairs. And they're like, we saw her body. That's not true. And she's got them tied up so they're powerless. She's like, no, I think it's her. And they're like, don't do that. Don't go down there. That's something else.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, it's her. And then she goes down there and it gets her throat ripped out.
Yeah.
Because it's a bear also.
Yeah.
But it means the bear doesn't know what it's doing. No. It's just yelling. Mm-hmm. But the yell to us has this art, like, because it's speech pattern and it's absorbed some of that thing.
Yeah.
And now it's this amalgam. The fact that it has this artifact of we can be misled as humans, and our brains can be misled by just this thing of it's just this bear that just wants to live and eat and doesn't want to kill us.
No.
It just saw food and it's just there and sniffing out, stuff.
Yeah.
And that's even more horrifying to me is the monster that doesn't even know it's a monster.
Right.
And it's just, trying to survive, because that's a familiar monster, because that's how nature works, right? Nature is just like, sometimes I just have to murder a bunch of fish because I'm a whale.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a movie that never breaks its own rules. It is so devoted to the ideas that it establishes with mutation and just reproduction and biology and stuff like that. It never defies its own set of principles, and it's amazing for that. Just by that achievement by itself, it makes it a sci-fi movie that I think everybody should see. If you like hard science, if you like science in movies, and you like science fiction specifically, watch this movie, because it doesn't I don't know, it's hard to explain how good it is without you seeing it.
Yeah, I mean, there's like visual postcards,
right?
Of
exactly.
Like
I can't describe it to you.
Thematic things are explained just in. Take a still image of the frame and you go, oh yeah, that's a meditation on duplication or duality, because of how they shot it and stuff. Yeah. Another movie I want to mention, which is like a real sleeper, because it didn't do that well and not a lot of people remember it. But do you remember, like, I think it was 2001, the movie Evolution?
I recognize the title of the movie. I don't remember.
David Duchovny, and it has, because what it does is it has, and this is spoilers for 2000. Why are we even saying this now? It's a silicon-based invader on a meteor that just infects like an entire town.
Yeah,
and it grows super fast, and because it just like eats up everything next to it, and just like evolves in super quickly.
Right.
And the way they kill it is they find out that so arsenic is to us, and I think it's selenium would be to silicon. So they use shampoo which has selenium, like Head and Shoulders, to like just fuck up all the, and it's just like a sequence of just like injecting like the mass of alien with selenium, and it just dies like super fast.
And that's a clever version of like the non-clever version of Signs,
right?
It's like, oh, they invaded a planet,
right? That's even though I did like Signs because of like the human reasons,
and like the atmosphere,
like the interactions and like the development of the characters.
And the aliens are scary looking.
They're just real War of the Worlds dumb. Like, why are you fucking invading a planet that has mostly the thing that kills you? That is just nonsense. Because in War of the Worlds, they get the cold. You interacted with so many humans, and you're telling me you just now got the cold?
And also, like, the cold is only transferable between humans and maybe some other apes we can give the cold
right.
to.
So
you can't give the cold to a fish.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it was written a long time ago, so
I know,
we'll give
so
it
the science
a historical mulligan,
right?
Based off the science. But yeah, it's real not scientifically taught.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know. The monsters in the War of the Worlds, the spaceships and stuff like that, those are kind of cool. Like even in the Spielberg version of it, the newer one, the design of them is cool. They're yeah, it's just
the tripods and
yeah.
No, it's it's fun. But that's not, it is science fiction, but it's not what we're talking about because it doesn't have any bearing scientifically. It's just a make 'em up, a think 'em up. Just like vampires and zombies for the most part. Well, actually, what's the most scientifically taught zombie film?
I don't know. I like to say something like 28 Days Later is pretty good.
Because it's just a virus and it just makes you go crazy. Right. So you're not a zombie with superpowers. Yeah. You just have a mental disorder.
Or it's a rabid human, basically.
Yeah.
And even in 28 Weeks Later, there are people that can be carriers that do not exhibit the symptoms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they can spread the virus that way. And that was 28 Days Later's Alex Garland. That's something that he wrote.
That's right. Yeah. Fuck.
So this is just an Alex Garland appreciation podcast.
Apparently. I didn't even think that would go there. But now we're here.
But no, yeah. And I think as far as zombies are concerned, that's the best one. I think another monster that kind of deserves some credit, even though it's kind of silly, is the Tremors, the graboids. They're really cool, like weird, creepy monster.
They're a creepy monster, but so what makes them? Because they're essentially gigantic fluke worms,
right?
Like they're and I admire the evolutionary truth that all we are is just different configurations of ultimately just a tube.
Yeah,
it's
and
garbage in, garbage out, and so just make a thing that's very small, and we all clearly in our own evolution came from a version of that.
That's a concept.
Imagine that a big one.
Yeah. And that's a concept that I think for me, it has to pass this one specific scientific concept for a monster to be like, for me to go, oh, okay, yeah, that's a cool monster, is that it has to have something called bilateral symmetry, which basically 99% of all animals in the world have it. And that means that you have basically an even amount of organs on either side, and you have a front end and a back end, and also a belly and a back. And those rules basically make up 97% or 99% of all animals in the world. There are some things that aren't like that have that sponges is one that they're not bilaterally symmetrical,
and they're just constantly saying, "Kill me, let me die."
But yeah, and that's the way that that's just a basic biological concept that I think if a monster can get that right, then it kind of gets a pass from me, because there's you could do really cool or weird concepts with monsters, but that's a biological concept that's important to me, I guess.
Yeah. I like that nod to evolutionary science. Yeah. And I don't
know. There's exceptions, of course, because you have things like blobs that are obviously they're just blobs.
They're just what is the blob? It's just is it all a gigantic cell?
I don't know.
Or is it what's the word?
What?
Prokaryote?
Oh yeah, it could be prokaryotic cell. I like to think of it as being like nanotechnology that got out of control.
So a bunch of tiny things that form and build a lot of things. So it's multicellular, but ultimately amorphous and one thing.
And the only thing that it's doing is reproducing.
I mean, it's the thing. It's
eating and reproducing.
That's the thing, though.
Yep. That's the thing. That's the shimmer. That's the scariest stuff, is just something that doesn't have an agenda. It's because the Predator, you can understand the Predator, and if you're Arnold Schwarzenegger or Danny Glover, you can outthink the Predator, but you can't outthink a blob or a thing. You can kind of outthink a thing, but all it really wants is to reproduce.
They're making a new Predator with Shane Black.
Yeah. I hope it's good.
I really hope that, in the same way that the best handshake of all time comes from Predator between Arnold Schwarzenegger and Carl Weathers, I hope that at one point whoever's playing the main role in there's an equal shot of like their hands clasping, where it's just the main protagonist of the new Predator movie and an actual Predator. Like they just high five, they just shake each other's hand and they're like, good job. Because it's just so unnecessary, but it's just something I want to see.
Yeah.
I want that to be in the world because, I don't ask a lot of the world, but I'm asking this.
I do like...
Shane.
I like that the Predators have culture and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because that's something not a lot of aliens get a lot of.
No. And in that regard, I think that there's some inexplicably dumb aliens in a lot of fantasy in general. For example, what in your opinion is the dumbest concept for a species in Star Wars?
In Star Wars? Oh, I don't know.
Because there's a lot of them.
Right, exactly.
While you're thinking, I'm coming out hot with it. I already have it, which is the new film, Solo. When they get to that pleasure cruise liner or whatever, that fucking head in a
the Futurama head in the jar.
The Futurama head in the jar. Like, what the fuck is your deal? Like, were you resuscitated, or is this all you got going? Because you don't seem like you have any organs. You just seem like you're a head. And how do you procreate? That is, I love when they create alien species that there's many things that we have to solve as a species. Right. And they just are like, no, it's just this, and we didn't think about how they propagate, or because at some point someone's thinking about Jawa's fucking, and you gotta rectify that, you gotta be like those little Ewoks, when Wicket is oh, it's that's his lover.
Yeah,
that's his lover.
That was his best
little
friend.
Tiny fuck bears. Star Wars is real. Star Wars is real dumb. It doesn't take a lot of. It doesn't care about science in any way.
No, not at all.
Which is so stupid that in the prequels they were all right, randomly, apropos of nothing because we haven't explained anything in the past. We're going to bring science into it. There's midichlorians. It's little bugs in your blood. And why would they do that? If you take that out, it's an entirely fantastical kind of situation. Something like Annihilation or, Aliens or, Evolution. They're like, think about the science of things.
Yeah.
And they do it from the get-go. So you do or you don't. Don't try to half-ass both.
The prequels were also the entire inciting incident of those movies was a trade dispute.
Yeah. It's also got a New Jersey fucking car salesman.
Yeah.
Just, Watto or whatever.
Yeah, Watto.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
He's probably the dumbest alien
he
that
might
I can
be the
think
dumbest
of.
alien, because who wants to fuck that? Is there female Wattos who are just he's a nice little piece there.
And also Sebulba, because he has feet.
Sebulba. Yeah, he's just feet.
He has feet and hands, but for some reason walks on his hands and not his feet.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. And we're taking out all robots from the conversation.
Right.
Because there's a bunch of horrifying robot monsters.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, we got to take out, like, the Daleks and the, you know...
Terminators.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to take those out because those are synthetic beings.
Yeah.
They're not playing
We'll talk
by
about those another time.
Rules.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's a synthetic binary organism.
Sure.
Who knows what intelligence and sentience is, really. But we'll leave that for another podcast, I guess. Is there anything else you want to add? Any other movies you want to shout out?
I don't think so. Not right now, because I'm still so hung up on Annihilation.
Yeah, you really. I mean, I love that movie too, but you were really.
I know.
Pitching it.
Go see it if you haven't, because not enough people saw it in the theater.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Thanks for bringing in this topic today.
Yeah, of course.
Enjoyed this chat.
Yeah.
And just because every few weeks we like to do it, do you want to plug yourself?
Oh yeah, sure. You can follow me on Twitter at fanboychristian. That's Christian with no H. And yeah, I'm here on Small Beans. I'm going to be doing this and probably a couple of the other podcasts with them. We'll see what comes up in the future.
Cool. This has been Pop Culture Petri Dish. And this has been episode 9. See you in a few weeks.
Bye.
This has been a Small Beans endeavor. We're a bunch of pals who make podcasts, sketches, music, web series, and movies. The Beans always have new ideas percolating, so make sure to check us out at patreon.com/smallbeans. That's patreon.com/smallbeans, where you can browse all of our current and past content, see what we've got planned in the future, and learn how your support can help the Small Beans grow into huge, giant monster beans. If you enjoyed this content module, please like, rate, subscribe, or tell a friend about us. We love you.